What's up, guys? Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Today, we're going to be going through an SAT practice section. So, I highly recommend going through it on your own first and then checking your answers with me, and hopefully, we can compare strategies and you can find a more efficient way to do certain problems. So, yeah, I'll link the SAT practice section below and we'll hop right into it. This is a non calculator section, 20 questions. So, number one, Salim wants to purchase tickets from a vendor to watch a tennis match. We have a one time service fee and this equation. And it says, what does the 12 represent? So, in y equals mx plus b form, the b is your y-intercept and the m is your slope. I always tell my students that the y-intercept is your starting point, or your initial something, initial value. And then your slope is your rate of change, which means it's your increase, your decrease, or just some sort of change. So in this case, the y-intercept, your initial thing, is your initial cost, meaning your one-time service fee. So the 12 is the amount of the service fee. Now, if you weren't totally sure about that, something that you should be doing is eliminating answer choices A and C, since they basically say the same thing. The price of one ticket in dollars, the total amount in dollars for one ticket. So you can't have two correct answers on the SAT, meaning if you have the same answer twice, they're both wrong. And then D, the total amount we said was T. So that should be a pretty easy one. If you're not sure, the SAT goes from easy to hard. So the first few problems here should be pretty easy. And then as we get to like question 13, 14, 15, it gets harder. So a gardener buys two kinds of fertilizer. Fertilizer A, which is 60% filler, and it says X is the number of pounds of fertilizer A. So the 60% goes with X, and then the 40% goes with fertilizer B, which is Y. It says Y is the number of pounds of fertilizer B. So it looks like the 60% goes with X in answer choices B and D. However, when you have percentages, you need to move your decimal over to the left twice. So the 60% becomes 0.6. And that's how we know B is our answer. Exciting stuff, I know. Stick with it. It'll pay off in the end when you get into the colleges you want to with a good SAT score. What is the sum of the complex numbers 2 plus 3i and 4 plus 8i? Sum, of course, means we're adding. So don't let the I confuse you. We simply just combine like terms. 2 and 4 is 6. 3i and 8i is 11i. Pretty easy. Next one, number 4. In the equation above, p and t are constants. Which of the following could be the value of p? Whenever you see a binomial times a binomial, so like two things in parentheses, we're going to FOIL. So firsts, outers, inners, and then lasts. So the firsts would be px times px, so p squared x squared. The outers are going to give you pxt with a negative sign, and the inners are going to give you a pxt with a positive sign. So those will cancel, right? The pxt with the negative and the pxt, which are positive. And then the lasts are just t times negative t, so negative t squared. And it says that the 4x squared minus 9 is equal to this. This is what I call pairing up your variables. So I like to pair the things that have the same variables on each side of the equation. So the p squared x squared and the 4x squared both have an x squared. And then the constants. And what this does for me is it shows that these pink guys are going to be equal and these orange guys are going to be equal. So in our case, we need the p squared x squared to equal the 4x squared. That's what the question asks us for, p. So I know p is just 2, since p squared is going to equal 4. When you pair your variables, you can kind of ignore them afterwards. So I can ignore the x squareds here, and I just know p squared equals 4. Now, just so we know which of the following could be the value of p, they say that because there are multiple values of p. P could also equal negative 2, but of course that's not an answer choice. But just saying something squared, we have two values. Next question, number 5, we have an equation, and it says which one's the graph? Alrighty, positive slope of 2. So we should be going up 2 to the right 1. Positive slope means up and to the right or down and to the left. And then our y-intercept is -5. We should be starting down 5 on our graph. So this one's not it. This one's not it. So it's got to be either B or D. B has a negative slope. We're going up and to the left. So that can't be it. And D, we're going up 2 and over 1. Okay, number 6. If x equals 2/3 y and y equals 18, what's the value of 2x minus 3? We should be very comfortable substituting in values into other equations. X is just 2/3 times 18 over 1. Now, we could just multiply straight across. I like to cancel stuff on the bottom and top. So divide those both by 3, and we get 12. Now, look how they give us the trap answer of 12. That's always going to be the case. If you solve for x and they're not asking for x, they will give it to you as an answer. Don't pick it because they ask 2x minus 3. If x equals 12, we just plug it right in. 2x is 24, and then minus 3 gives us 21. Do not fall into the trap. Okay, number 7. A bricklayer uses the formula N equals 7LH. So now we need to solve for L. So what we need to do here is we need to divide both sides by 7h. That way we have L all by itself. The 7's cancel, the h's cancel, and we just have L equals N over 7h. I know my h's kind of look like n's, but that one's an h. We divided by 7h. So the answer here should be C. That's one you might want to just do in your head to save yourself some time. Number 8, table above shows some values of the functions w and t. For which value of x is w of x plus t of x equal to x? So we just want to see where these two columns add up to equal this guy, right? W of x plus t of x equals x. So here, those sum up to -4. These sum up to 2. So that works. 3 plus -1 equals 2. And we know the answer for which value of x? Well, x is 2 there. There it is. If the square root of x, plus the square root of 9 equals the square root of 64. So we need this to equal 5, right? Because 5 plus 3 equals 8. And the square root of something, 25, gives us 5. So we can check our work by doing the square root of 25 plus the square root of 9 equals the square root of 64. A square root, we're just looking for a number times itself that gives us that number. So 8 times 8 is 64, 3 times 3 is 9, and then 5 times 5 does give us the 25. All right, so this one, we're getting into the hard stuff. Jamie is preparing for a bicycle race. His goal is to bicycle an average of at least 280 miles per week for 4 weeks. Average equals the sum over the number of terms. So if he wants to bicycle an average of at least 280 miles, that's our average. That's going to equal the sum over the number of terms. And we are biking for 4 weeks. So 4 terms. That means the sum of our miles traveled, if we just cross multiply, go straight across there. And we could put that like over 1, cross multiply there. And we know that the sum is just going to equal 4 times 280. This is a non-calculator section, so we shouldn't have to do any multiplication like that. So if we know the sum equals 4 times 280, and it actually, I shouldn't write it equals 4 times 280. It says that he averaged at least 280. So the sum should be at least this. And it looks like D. D adds up all 4 weeks, and it's at least this guy. Another thing you can do is actually solve this and figure out what that last value would need to be for the sum to be 280 times 4. But I don't recommend that. You don't have a calculator. It's not going to be quick. So we can just compare our work to the answer choices. And we see D is kind of the obvious one. We add up all of our miles to get at least the sum. Okay, parabola. The vertex of this parabola is 0, comma c, not too important. Which of the following is true about the parabola with the equation negative a, and then this guy? This coefficient on the x squared right here tells us whether the parabola opens up or down. We see a is positive, so the parabola opens upward. We see here a is negative, so that parabola that they're asking us about should open downward. So we can eliminate a and c. Now to get the vertex, you flip this sign, so positive b, keep this sign the same, comma c. So b, comma c would be the vertex here. Since we don't have a number like b in the other equation, this would just be 0, comma c for the vertex, and that they actually told you. So the vertex we get from the number with the x, and then the number added on at the end. Just don't forget, you flip the sign here. It's really easy to pick D as a trap answer. Which of the following is equivalent to this equation? Or really expression, there's no equal sign. So what I like to do when I have variables in the question and variables in the answer choices is I like to make up a number for my variable. They don't restrict it really. I just can't make it something where the denominator is going to be 0. Other than that, I have infinite number of choices. X is going to be 2 for me. Now I plug it into here, and I have 4 times 2 squared. Don't forget to square the 2 first. So 4 times 4 is 16, plus 6 times 2, over 4 times 2 plus 2. So I'm getting 28 over 10. So 2.8. Now, when I plug in my 2 into the answer choices, whichever answer is correct will also get me 2.8 since it says it should be equivalent to what I just had. A and B are out because I'm just going to get whole numbers there. And then C. If I plug X in, I get 2 and then minus something. Now, I'm trying to get to 2.8, so I don't need to continue. I know this is not going to get me to 2.8 because when you subtract off a positive number, you're going to get something less than 2. And then for D, I plug in 2. 2 plus 1 is 3 minus something. Yeah, that would make sense to be 2.8. I could do the work, but it's unnecessary. I've already eliminated 3 answer choices. Now, number 13. In the equation above, t is a constant. If the equation has no real solutions, which of the following could be the value of t? When you have quadratics, it is very important to get everything to one side. So I just subtracted t on both sides. No real solutions. There are 2 ways to think about this. I'll show you both. When you have the quadratic formula, this thing inside of the radical determines how many solutions you have. This b squared minus 4ac. If b squared minus 4ac is a positive number, you have 2 solutions. If it's negative, you have no solutions because you can't square root a negative number. And if it's 0, then you only have 1 solution. And the reason for that is plus 0 and minus 0 gives you the same thing, so it's just one answer. But plus some number or minus some number, when you have a positive number, that gives you 2 solutions. So we are looking for no real solutions, so we're looking for where b squared minus 4ac is negative. So b squared minus 4ac is less than 0. A equals 2. A is the coefficient on the x squared term. B equals negative 4. It's the coefficient on the x term. And your constant is just c, which is negative t. Plug everything in for negative 4 squared is 16 minus 4 times a times c less than 0. So we get 16. Negative times a negative is a positive. And if we just rearrange a little bit, t is less than negative 2. So a has to be the answer. That's the only one less than negative 2. But there's another way to think about this, and honestly, it's kind of quicker. We know this is going to be a parabola. And like we said before, the coefficient on the x squared determines whether it opens upward or downward. So this one's going to open up like this. And since we have no real solutions, it shouldn't touch the x-axis. However many times your graph touches the x-axis is how many solutions you have. So a parabola like this that doesn't touch the x-axis must be shifted up as far as possible, because if we shift it down, it intersects twice. So in order to shift something up, you want this coefficient at the end, and by coefficient, I mean just the thing without a variable, constant, excuse me. You want that to be as positive as possible. So when you plug -3 in, the negatives cancel and you get +3. That's the largest value you're going to have with these 4 answer choices. So A, if you kind of just think about it analytically, will be the answer. Okay, 2 more multiple choices. We have a laundry service with a bunch of detergent and fabric softener, and we want at least twice as many containers of detergent. D is the containers of detergent, and S is the number of fabric softener containers. Now, it says D and S are non-negative. Of course, you can't have negative containers of something. Which of the following systems best represents the situation? So the detergent goes with the 7.35. The softener goes with the 6.2. So it's between A and B because C and D don't have the 7.35. Now, a big mistake everyone makes, not everyone, you won't make it, is if we need twice as many containers of detergent, don't just resort to 2D because you need twice as much detergent. If you're saying the detergent is twice as much as the softener, it's actually this guy. A is your answer. For instance, we can make up numbers. We can say D equals 4, and if detergent needs to be at least twice as much as the softener, S would need to be like 2 or 1 or 0. So that will only work with this inequality. If you try doing it here, 2D is greater than or equal to S, well, then we could say that, for instance, S equals 4 and D equals 4, which obviously can't be the case. It'll work here, but it won't satisfy the need of twice as many containers of softener, detergent. Lastly, which of the following is equivalent to A plus B over 2 squared? We could FOIL, we could make up numbers for A and B. So I could say A equals 1, B equals 2, or I could just FOIL. I'm going to FOIL it here. So don't forget, you cannot distribute that exponent to the 2 terms. Big mistake people make. So FOIL, A times A is A squared. The outers give you AB over 2. So do the inners. And the lasts give you B squared over 4. AB over 2 plus AB over 2, half of AB plus half of AB gives you a full AB. D. Now, number 16, our first grid-in problem. So these kinds of problems, you need to get your own number and then you kind of bubble it in without multiple choices. So if A to the B over 4 equals 16 positive integers, A and B, what is one possible value of B? So let's make this easy. We're just doing guess and check. A is going to be 16. That way 16 to the B over 4 equals 16. This has to be 16 to the first power to equal 16. So B is just 4. When they say what is one possible value of B, that means there are probably going to be multiple values that work. I think they accept like 5 answers here. I think 1 works. I think 16 works. There are a bunch here that work. What is the value of T that gives you the solution? Very simply, multiply by the reciprocal to get T isolated. The 3's and the 2's cancel, and then T is just 15 over 4. I would grid in 1, 5/4. No need to make this a decimal. You're just wasting time at that point. Number 18. When we have triangles inside of triangles, we're going to have similar triangles on the SAT. No doubt about it. You don't need to prove it with like a 2-column proof just see that this smaller triangle is a third the size of the bigger triangle. We can see that because this side, the vertical one, goes with this side, the vertical one. And the bigger one is 3 times as big. So we want to know the length of CE. So that goes with CD. We don't know CD, but we can use the Pythagorean theorem to find it. Or we could use our 3, 4, 5 triangle to find that. So this is going to be your 3, this will be your 4, and this will be your 5 with everything doubled. You could have done 6 squared plus 8 squared equals C squared. That would get you C equals 10 as well. And now we know CE is 3 times as long as the small one. So our answer here is 30. This is probably the hardest question. We'll go over how many liters of a 25% saline solution must be added to 3 liters of a 10% saline solution. Obtain a 15% saline solution. Anytime you're working with percentages, you multiply your percent by your total to get your fraction. What I mean by that is, let's say you have a 6% tip. You're going to multiply 6% by your bill to get your fraction of the bill. That's the tip. Same thing here. We're going to multiply our percent times our total volume to get our percent that's saline, which is just salt. So the percent times the total volume gives us the amount of salt. So let's do this for the 3 solutions. So for the first one, we have a 25% saline solution, 0.25 times the total volume of that solution. That's what we're looking for. We'll call that X, and that'll give us the percent, not the percent, but the amount of saline. We're going to add that to 3 liters of a 10% solution, and that'll get us 0.3. So we're adding these 2 amounts of salt together to get 15%, 0.15. And our volume, our total volume, well, we can just add these. If we had X liters and 3 liters, that's going to be X plus 3 liters, which will get us 0.15X plus 0.45. The hardest part here is realizing that we are adding these 2 solutions. And right here, that's just going to be 0.25X. We're adding these 2 solutions to get the total solution. So what we're going to have here is 0.25X plus 0.3 to give us 0.15X plus 0.45. I'm going to leave myself some room to finish this equation. And when I simplify, it's going to be a good idea to multiply everything by 100 to get rid of the decimals. It's kind of hard to do this without that step. I'm going to subtract 15 on both sides, subtract 30 on both sides, and I get 10x equals 15. Divide by 10, and I get x equals, to divide by 10, you can just move the decimal over once, 1.5. That's about it. So yeah, that's a tough one, really tough one. And we will conclude with number 20, a circle problem. And the circle has a radius of 1, it says. And arc AB. Arc just means it goes from one part of the circle to another part around the edge, so around the circumference. And it says that has a length of pi over 3. What fraction of that circumference? Fraction equals part over whole. What fraction of the circumference of the circle is the length of AB? So our part is pi over 3. Our whole would be the whole circumference. And circumference equals 2 pi r. So 2 pi times our radius, which is 1, is just 2 pi. So our whole is 2 pi. To get rid of the fraction within the fraction, we can just multiply the top and bottom by 3. And we get pi over 6 pi. Cancel the pi's, and we get 1 over 6. And that's it. There it is. Perfect score, 20 for 20 on the non-calculator section. So I highly recommend you reviewing this. There's a lot to learn from this video. If you're confused about anything and can't come up with a solution, feel free to leave me a comment and I'll answer your question in the comments section. But other than that, I'll see you in the next video.
Brad does math.